Education. Supposedly, universal education was gonna give us the informed public. That's the word they use, isn't it? Informed public that would be able to manage democracy and blah blah blah, and necessary to basically necessary to us understanding the issues well enough to choose our own leaders. And that was thought up, of course, before the idea was thought up with Buckley versus Vallejo, that money is speech. And then there's another one that says that U.S. Supreme Court opinion that says that corporations are people. So that means that they can give money to political campaigns. And between those two things, we've become an oligarchy rather than a democracy. The education establishment, of course, has been doing its best to help by regimenting children, and now they think they have a right to make them wear uniforms, which I think would have been pretty incredible to the founders. And they send them home if they have a T-shirt with something controversial on it, like "I don't like school." You can't say that you don't like them, and hardly anybody does like them. They're so terrible. Those that they can't manipulate, what they did, at least when I was a kid, was they had these intelligence tests, and then a couple of weeks after they administered them, they would call students in out of sight of everyone else and tell them that you're a gifted child. Why are you a discipline problem? And we have these special courses for gifted children, if they do what they're told. And if you weren't one of those, then it was very simple. You weren't going to go in the gifted child program, and they put you in storage, which is what they do with most gifted children. And then they just basically hold you there, similarly to a prisoner, because you're required to attend school, but you're not required to learn anything. And of course, anybody that's got any sense at all gets put in storage, because I mean, look who they graduate and how little it takes for them to know. For the education racket, they want complete idiots. And that's why they're willing, that's who they have too, education has the lowest IQs of anybody that gets into college. It's the dummy major. It's even dumber than sociology. And that's saying quite a bit. So they take these people and they tell them, well, you have to make these kids compliant, and they go around complaining like they were in let's see, what is that, 1999, when I quit law practice. One of my friends, the best lawyer I knew, was making $24,000 a year after 15 years in practice, and the teachers were complaining that they have a bachelor's degree, and he of course had a doctorate, because that's what you have to be a lawyer. They were complaining that they only made $24,000 in 9 months, whereas somebody with a doctorate was making $24,000 a year in 12 months after 15 years of experience. But such is the value of being a propagandist, that it's worth much more than actually teaching anyone anything or actually knowing anything. Now, for those of you who are looking at the decision to go to college, I would say most likely you should not. They've made student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, which means if you don't make it, they will follow you literally for decades wanting that money. There's no statute of limitations, there's no fairness, there's no bailout. Yeah, I know. The Wall Street banks got a $700 billion bailout for their own greed and stupidity. You, simply for going to college and majoring in something that didn't turn out to be in demand by the time you graduated, you don't get a bailout. Ever. So you're looking at basically a lifetime of bad credit. Because you can't discharge it in bankruptcy and just wait, until it comes off your credit report. It just stays there. It's kind of like a tattoo. So they have these stupid people teaching, and they teach stupid subjects, like Anne Lieven. I'm going to put I hope I remember to go into the description and put a link to her little video. I took a gender studies course, so you don't have to. And that was nice of her to put up with all that just for us. It kind of reminds you of somebody that willingly got on the cross. That's what those classes are like. And then, they've got women's studies, and they've got, I don't know what. These classes where they tell you how awful the patriarchy is. Whoever the patriarchy is, I don't know. It's like supposedly men are the cause of all the problems. There's just as many poor people that are men as there are that are women. And then they'll tell you about the gender gap in wages, which everybody that's looked into it has discovered it doesn't exist. And what's the other one? Oh, the glass ceiling too. One of these millions of dollars a year CEOs of a Fortune 10 corporation is female. So if there is a glass ceiling, it's pretty far up there to be like the person with, one of the dozen highest salaries in the world. But of course logic has nothing to do with it. And that's just part of what the kind of stupid idiots that you'll have to spend your time with if you go to college now. 3/4 of them have no business being in college. And people say, well, they don't like the German system because the German system says you're stupid, you can't go to college. Well, a lot of them, that's what they should be told. So the Germans may be wrong sometimes, but in principle they're right. There is no point in spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on educating somebody who's ineducable. That's a lot of tax money to spit out people that have a bunch of pieces of paper that don't mean anything at all. And look at these, like this Evergreen College. Now that's not the only place, but it's the latest amazing show of this kind of stupidity that conservatives say it's only on the left, and that's conservatives have absolutely thought up their share of stupid junk. Just as if, for instance, we had the Affordable Care Act, which was not much good, but it was better than nothing. And the Republicans now just want to knock down the Affordable Care Act. They haven't got any idea what to replace it with. They just know that they don't want anything that was done by the Democrats to survive. Fixing it's not an option. Modifying it, trying to make it better, pick out the things that are bad. No. We're not fixing it because it's got Democratic trademark on it someplace. So it doesn't make any difference how many Republican parts you put in it to make it work. No. So we're going to trash that, give the rich a big tax break, and then it doesn't even matter if we replace it with anything. So we can regress all the way back. And that's the kind of thinking that they want you to believe is okay. And they're going to make their colleges teach that. The stupidity that they blame liberals for, as if any liberal would be for this, is this Black Lives Matter. And they said, I don't know enough to say if they have any complicity in this black female cop that got shot lately, but it sounds like maybe they do. So they've been going around yelling Black Lives Matter, off the pig, and all this kind of stuff. And then when somebody does kill a cop, it's a black woman with 3 little kids. That is just, what a really lousy thing to do. Black Lives Matter, but not if they're a mother of 3 small children who works at a dangerous job, and they assassinated her just because they wanted to, like, I don't know what, make the point that they could shoot somebody. Yeah, see, you can shoot a cop in the back. And I don't know anything about her except looking at her picture. She looked like a nice person. She's probably was a good cop. You know, but I mean, if they killed somebody that was a bad cop, at least you could say, well, you know, they shot that guy because he was a bad cop and he used too much violence and stuff. But they didn't know anything about her. Except, I guess they could tell she's black. So, I don't know what that means. I guess to me, Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter doesn't matter. They had them and I don't know, some of their ilk. It doesn't matter which ones they were, right? At Evergreen, where they. Now these are all people that are supposedly smart. That right there in college, they're not dummies like the people that are going to go out and work and not have health insurance, of course. And these supposedly smart kids decided that they were going to have a day at the university when they wouldn't let any white people come there. Now, this is a public university, right? Most of the people whose money paid to build that university are white. And more of them are Hispanic than black. More of them are Asian than black too, probably. The money for those kind of things comes from the middle class because the rich don't pay and the poor can't. So they put it all on the guy that owns the dry cleaners or the electrician or somebody like that, the very people that do the most for the least already. That's who you get your taxes from. Well, this is the caliber of people that they're sending to college. And that the colleges are training people. When I was in school, they had a school of architecture cranking these kids out with architecture degrees. 1% would find a job. There were 3 law students for every lawyer in practice. Most law students will never practice law, even the ones that do pass the bar. They are teaching people for professions, careers that do not exist. Meanwhile, the best money I ever made was as an able seaman on an offshore supply vessel working in the oil field out of southern Louisiana. And I got a doctorate. The education system sucks, and you're probably best to stay away from it and do just anything else to make a living.